Hello, I'm Mary Easter and I'm with John Parr, the Regional Commissioner from Scout Queensland, and we'll be asking him a few questions about scouting through the COVID era. To start off first, after COVID first started, how were Scouts?
So Scouts Queensland, up until the 26th of March 2020, had been delivering for 114 years Scouts face to face. So people would come to our Scout halls and dens across the country, and they would meet with the leaders and do activities and have having games and activities. On the 26th of March, when our first lockdown occurred, we had to change the way we delivered scouting basically overnight. So out of nowhere, we started creating online programs and to allow our leaders to continue delivering scouting via platforms such as Zoom and Skype and Microsoft Office Teams. So we had to move really fast, and we had to change what we'd been doing for 114 years overnight, which we successfully did through our Scouting at Home programs.
Where did the idea of scouting at home come from?
Well, I think COVID-19 and lockdown forced that on us, and the name Scouting at Home basically just evolved overnight. It was just a phrase that was used that's how we were going to deliver scouting directly into the homes of our youth members using one of those social media platforms or one of those online telecommunication platforms.
Were most groups able to do the scouting online?
They pretty much started straight away. Lockdown one day, and it was scouting at home the next day, basically.
What was the positives of doing it?
Look, the positives were fantastic from a Scouts perspective. We continued, so we didn't shut down our operations such as like maybe the local football club or those sorts of places that couldn't meet, they couldn't train, they couldn't play games, whereas we were able to develop programs and via those, Skype or Teams or Zoom, be able to get into the homes of young people and families and keep scouting going. We just had to adapt things that we'd been doing before, but we relied on young people getting things from their home, or even if they were able to drop down to a local hall, to their local group, and they were able to collect a kit of things that they could use on a weekly basis while we were in lockdown.
Wow. I'm sure there was also some negatives to it.
Look, not really. I guess the negatives were that it was for a lot of our leaders, it was an unusual platform to, if you weren't IT savvy, to be able to use things like Teams or Skype or Zoom and those sorts of things, and understand that they had to create an account in Zoom and those sorts of things, and then the free version only let you do things for 40 minutes at a time. But our leaders developed programs that would go in 40-minute chunks so that we could adapt, deliver 40 minutes of program, have a bit of a break, then come back, 15 minutes later and do another 40 minutes. So we're able to adapt programs in that way. But it was getting leaders across the line to actually use those, and not everybody did. Some people just shut down scouting completely in their local group and just said not all too hard, whereas most groups across the state embraced it. And a really good example for this district, on the 26th of March in 2020, there were 297 Scouts in Logan District. Look at today, there is actually over 439 Scouts in Logan, so over a 51% increase in membership. And that's partly because we were delivering scouting at home on a computer or a device at home. The whole family got to see what was actually going on, and brothers and sisters and even some parents thought this is pretty cool stuff, and they really liked what we were doing because we were keeping their kids occupied, they were doing useful things, and it was we recruited more people during that phase. Apart from ACT and Queensland, we were the only two states who grew in our numbers across the state. We had from when COVID lockdown first started to today, over 18% increase So Logan District is well above that. It's over 51%, but across the whole state, we grew from about 8,500 scouts across the youth members across the state to 10,200 today.
Wow, congratulations.
So it's been a wonderful, well, congratulations to Logan District Scouts because they've really grown and done some fantastic things. So it's been really positive from a scouting perspective.
That's good. Well, that leads on to my next question. How was training for leaders after that?
Yeah, so it's exactly the same. We had to develop some different ways to deliver our leader training, and that meant, again, it was coming online, but we would send them things that they had to do and do some research through with their local group, and then they would come to their training session with some of that information.
What about things like kayaking and snorkeling where you got to be physical on?
Yeah, can't do that. It's a bit challenging, particularly go to some of our scouting centres which were shut down because of COVID. But that actually didn't stop scouting happening. For example, a lot of kids or youth members were going through their peak awards like the Australian Scout Medallion or the Queen Scout, and part of that's a journey. Well, it's very hard to do a journey where we weren't allowed to go too far away from home, couldn't go into a national park or a state forest or anything like that. So we adapted our journey guidelines to cater for lockdown. So scouts would set up their campsite in their backyard and cook all their meals in the backyard as if they were out in the bush but doing it in their own backyard, and then they would plan hikes virtually. So because of technology, you can Google Maps and Q Topo, you can get all your maps online. So they're actually able to plan a journey like they normally would. They just didn't get to go on it right now for real. A lot of them waited, but there's a lot of kids who actually put their pack on and walk the neighbourhood and those sorts of things so they could still complete the journey requirements, and quite a number of scouts were able to do that. So we believe that no one should be disadvantaged through COVID, so we did everything we possibly could to cater for those sorts of kids, particularly those doing the journey stuff. Yep, you're right, sailing and kayaking and all those sorts of things, yep, they had to stop, and we couldn't do much about that. But we were able to do other things and work around, because we could still teach people the parts of a boat or the parts of a canoe, so they could do a lot of the preliminary safety things, but they just couldn't get their hands on the stuff.
I saw a lot of Instagram posts, thanks to a Noosa venture, about more venture friends. I saw a lot of ventures post pictures of when they had to do that during COVID.
Yeah.
Thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of support. I think our leaders and our young people use social media like Facebook to really support each other. And we've got a really good adventurous activity team. We're pretty creative in terms of trying to do things to get people across the line. So they did a great job as well.
That's good. What's the next one?
Alrighty. So. How scouting changed is that I guess we've created over 400 either programs or how-to videos, which are now permanently on the Scouts Queensland website. So they're accessible 24/7, 365. So anyone can access those anytime. In actual fact, we've had overseas countries inquire asking whether they can use our programs. We've had other states of Australia contact us to say, can we use your programs straight from your website? And of course, they're free. We just want people to use. So people use them. So we've changed scouting quite dramatically. In actual fact, we've been recognised by the Brisbane City Council. We've just received an award of excellence for our Scouting at Home program and the continuance of scouting during COVID. So that came out of the Queensland Outdoor Recreation Federation, so QORF. So we're pretty proud of that we've been recognised for that sort of stuff. So that's pretty cool to be recognised by Brisbane City Council. So I guess the program's always there. They'll continue to be used. Leaders will probably use them and adapt them back into our face-to-face environment. So, or if we go into lockdown, they're sitting there ready to go, or if there are other countries who need to use them, they're sitting there ready for them to use any time. And they're good fun, Like, I got to run one program just as a demonstration for a local scout group over in another district, and the last activity we did was the kids had to do it was for Cub Scouts, so it was the 8 to 10 11-year-olds, and what they had to do is have a scavenger hunt was the last activity. So they had to go and get some flour, some milk, an egg, a fry pan, some butter, and basically they had to scavenge hunt all the ingredients that they would need to make pancakes, and their last activity for the night was to make pancakes for family. So most of the kids were in their kitchen, so it was quite easy. It was usually when we had two kids from the same family squabbling over who was going to get the Nutella or the ice cream or the jam or the strawberries to go on the pancakes because they had to get their favourite topping as well. So that made it a bit of fun, I guess. So that's an example of some of the things that people could do. And if they picked up a kit, maybe some ropes and a compass and a map, so they could actually do some scouting type activities as well. So there's lots of that sort of stuff going on. Miniature pioneering, so obviously we can't get kids using 5-foot poles in a house, but they could make it a lot smaller by using pencils and elastic bands, rubber bands, and create bridges and flag poles and all sorts of other things as well. So there's a whole lot of stuff that they could do, and they could do that now in their normal scouting environment, or they could, if scout lockdown happened again, we could do it straight away. So it's been really positive from a scouting perspective. It has been difficult to try and get those groups that didn't engage back together and going in, but we seem to be getting there slowly with those. And as we've come out of lockdown, the camping has started, and scouts are going on journeys, and they're going sailing and canoeing and doing all those things that they were doing before. So that's been a really good thing and a positive thing. We've just got more kids, our leader population will be better, so we can increase the number of leaders we've got. But that's a work in progress for Scouting.
Well, how was Scouting COVID for you?
For me, well, as regional commissioner, I guess I was just encouraging as many people as I could to engage the Zoom or Skype or whatever platform they were using, or Office 365, and so that was, and then show people how to do it and walk them through, even if it was run sessions. So I was running all of my meetings. My normal leader meetings was via Office 365, the Teams environment. So we continued, I guess, business as usual, but we were just doing it via, not face to face, and so not that personal contact, but people still able to do their role within Scouting fairly effectively through that way.
So through doing all of this, have you had to talk on behalf of your Scouting community? Do you think they prefer the online or the in-person?
Oh, I think that Scouting has moved to an environment where we can adapt to both. We can run both at the same time, and that's where we're continuing with online training of leaders, particularly those leaders that are a little bit more remote and can't get to face-to-face courses. So we're continuing those, and our meetings are now a combination of our people who are in the country or up north or wherever, or out west, are jumping in on our city meetings, so to speak, online, so they can still contribute and still be part of that meeting. So it's really important that they can do that.
Well,
They're connected.
Do you have any interesting stories about the Scouting during COVID from yourself or from people you've heard?
Oh, look, I think that the main thing has been that our leaders have been, most of our leaders have adapted quite quickly and accepted that this is, if they want to maintain Scouting and continue contact and developing young people in those really important skills, the social, the physical, the intellectual, emotional and spiritual characteristics of a young person, that we needed to continue contact with them. So maintaining communication is important. So many leaders recognise it was important that they continue Scouting in some way, and if that was online, that's how it had to be. And I think that we've, because we've grown as an organisation, from understanding the online environment, but in physical numbers as well. It's been really pretty cool, and kids having built the tallest tower in their kitchen out of these materials that they're just finding around the house has been pretty cool that they've been able to do that. It's that sort of stuff, and going on virtual walks. Because of the online maps that we can get now and those sorts of things. So that's been pretty cool that they've been able to do that as well. And the leaders have just walked. So all those skills that you know, we might invest some time in our scout, or we've just transferred that to an online environment. We've just had to create more maps or create ways of how do we get access to those things. So kids have been on their computers and they've been able to share screens and do all those sorts of things. So, and I guess their growth in understanding technology has grown tremendously well, and our own leaders' education and how to use technology is pretty good as well. So I think that's, from a stories point of view, they would be the main things that I would probably be warming to, that the fact that, you know, we've continued scouting, we've grown as a movement, and those programs are still there, and they're just wonderful programs that people have created. And I think that's, you know, we're really proud of what we've done, and obviously being recognised by the Brisbane City Council has helped as well.
Well, thank you today for answering our questions and giving us an insight of COVID. Giving us an insight of Scouts during COVID. Thank you so much.
No, Samira, it's been my pleasure to come and talk to you today, and thank you for asking those probing questions. And look, it's just been an awesome experience for a lot of people who will look back on this, and when COVID's long gone, hopefully, and it's just the flu or, you know, those common things that we get, that we'll look back on and think, geez, we adapted pretty quick. In terms of, because we really did turn some of this around in 24 hours, so it happened pretty fast. So we'll look back at this and go, yeah, it's a pretty interesting time for us and what we've been able to do. We look at other countries who are still doing it, and still in lockdown, so that's, we're happy